could you talk a little bit about what are ghost shows? That's something that we don't have nowadays.
It was a form of entertainment that really came into being around 1930, 1932. During the late 1800s, the turn of the century, the 1900s, there was a big growth in spiritualism. People were trying to make contact with the dead.
And basically, Houdini adored his mother. When he heard that she was dead, he was in Europe performing. He fell on the floor in a dead faint. And when he knew that there were people around who told him he could get in touch with his mother, he frequented them, and there were lots of them. And he was very discouraged because he was a magician. And he knew how to do tricks, and he knew how to make the bell ring with your toes when your hands were tied by somebody. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so he dedicated a large part of his latter days, and he was not an old man when he died, but doing an expose of spirit mediums. He made it his life work in a way, that in combination with his shows, he always did a stage show, and he would challenge any medium in the neighborhood, do his research, to come up and show him something, because he knew they couldn't.
Right.
And there's still, you see, an always huge interest in the afterlife. What happens when you die? Can you do the dead return? The great Thurston had a poster like that with a question mark. Do the dead return? And he did a segment in his show in what they called a spirit cabinet. It was built like a cabinet of cloth, and ghosts appeared in there. And he would put a board in there and a hammer and a nail, and close the curtains, and someone would drive it and then open it. No one was in there.
They started to put these certain effects into their shows. They would advertise it as a spook show,
Okay.
or a ghost show. And Howard Thurston did it. Harry Blackstone did it. They would have a special night. He would come in, and they would perform maybe some of the same magic tricks you saw, but they had like this ghostly theme to it. So some of the performers, they started to use a luminous paint, glow-in-the-dark paint, and they would take pieces of cheesecloth and paint it or whatever, so the lights would go out, and it would look like at the end like these ghosts appeared. And they wouldn't just appear like on stage, they would actually appear out in the audience as well. And they did a phenomenal business with that. At one time, Dantini actually did performed some ghost shows with McCarl Roberts.
And we went to all the old movie houses where they were still showing movies, and we had a trailer, a preview of coming attractions, which would be shown on the screen during the week, inviting you to come to see the spook show, which always took place at midnight, after the theater had closed for the evening.
Okay.
They went through and swept, got popcorn up, and then basically, that was a great source for them to make a few extra dollars.
The tradition of renting out a theater for a midnight show is still around today. While not focusing on spooky magic, fans come out in droves to see cult films. These films were box office flops at the time of their release, but saw new life in this underground following. On any given Saturday night, you could see John Waters' Pink Flamingos, the reggae masterpiece The Harder They Come, or maybe even do the time warp again with, which is probably the most popular midnight film, The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
And we came in and did a spook show. Now Dantini did his same 12-minute act, and my wife and I, and sometimes another female assistant, would do the better part of the show with the illusions. We featured a guillotine chopping a fellow's head off ostensibly, but we did a floating ball, some mysterious things, almost of a spooky or scary nature. And people from the audience were brought up to do that. Then the show closed, the spook show closed, with ghosts, supposedly, apparitions, skulls floating throughout the audience.
Wow.
That was the thing that sold the show. And that was really scary. If you'd been there, you'd have known to see those things floating around. You wondered, really, how did that happen?
And it was at the Broadway Theater that somebody had a bomb, some sort of, I don't know, it was a pipe bomb or something, but it went off during the blackout when the ghosts were appearing. And there was a lot of screaming, and when lights came up and smoke and everything, and they blew up a seat in the theater. And a piece of metal, shrapnel, went flying and cut a girl's leg. They had to take her to the hospital. But it wasn't their fault. I mean, it's just some goofball did that.
Right.
And it was at that point, that's when McCarl Roberts said, that's it, I'm done with the ghost show era. And it was really coming toward the end of it anyway. It would have died out regardless. But, everything has a cycle, and that's what happened.
While ghost shows may have died out in the 1950s, the interest in coming together through horror did not. Horror hosts picked up their tradition, starting in the late 50s with Vampira and Zachary. From the comfort of your own home, you could tune in late at night and watch schlock horror films framed with the crazy antics of these horror hosts. Most of these programs were local shows, but that doesn't mean the tradition doesn't still hold up today.
Now, a couple of years ago, Teller of Penn and Teller created a show called Play Dead. Now, I never saw it, but it was, I think it was an off-Broadway show. It was a play, is basically what it was, and all this stuff happened. But at the end of the show, they turned out all the lights, and ghosts would appear.
Oh, wow.
So they used the same elements of the ghost show,